for you today. I'm doing something a little bit different for me and a little bit outside my comfort zone. I am creating a layout with 4 fairly large photos on the one page. I found over the last couple of years I've been definitely more of a single or perhaps 2 photo per layout scrapper, but I had these 4 photos from a family outing back in 2017, and they'd been sitting in a folder on my computer and I just really wanted to print them off and get them down. So I decided to pop them all onto the same page, give myself a little bit of a challenge and see how I went. To create this layout, I am using the Felicity Jane Lindsey Kit. That's the kit that came out last month in February. I am a little bit behind. Being in Australia, it takes a while for my kits to arrive. But what you've just seen me do is cut the middle out of that red polka dot paper, which I'm using as a mat for my background. And I've cut the middle out of that because I really did like that red polka dot paper and want to be able to use that again. The paper matches perfectly with the shirt that my daughter is wearing, which you can't see, but it is some red polka dots there. So I knew how I wanted to lay my photos out on this page, but I wasn't really too sure if I wanted to just have them on the plain white background or not. In the end, I decided to mat the 2 larger photos onto the solid coloured cardstock that came in the kit. And for these, I've used the darker pink, it's like a dark coral colour. And I'm just matting those 2 larger photos on that and leaving the 2 square photos on their own. So I'm just creating a really small mat for those, and then I'm going to lay my photos out in a kind of a grid and just get them all lined up nice and neatly with each other. And I'm sticking them straight down because, like I said, I'm pretty happy with that placement, and I'm really trying to just go with the flow with this layout and not overthink it too much, which is something that I definitely tend to do when I am scrapbooking. So that bottom photo, which is the photo of myself, my fiance and our daughter, I wanted that one to pop out a little bit because I think it was kind of the feature. So I've just popped some foam on the back of that to lift it up from the page just a little bit. And I'm using my tape to stick that foam down. I just find that the tape runners don't hold to the foam very well, so I do have to use double-sided tape with that foam. I added glue runner to this top photo, and then I realized that it wasn't going to work because I was actually planning on hiding my journaling behind that photo on a little tag. So rather than reprint the photo or try and mess around with getting that tape off, I've just grabbed a piece of plain white copy paper and I've stuck that behind the photo just to cover up the tape so that I've got, I can basically start again with sticking it down. And then I've grabbed that red polka dot paper, which on the back had a lined ledger print to it. And I've decided that I'm going to use that to create my tag, which is going to sit behind that photo. I went through my folder, which you'll see here. This is how I store my stamps. I have just some 6x8 folders with some little page protectors in them. And I've gone through my Felicity Jane stamps there to see which ones I might want to pull out and use on this layout. So I've got the 2 basic stamp sets, which have got some super versatile phrases, which I have been using quite a lot. And I also grabbed the stamp set which came from the Reagan kit. So from that Reagan kit stamp set, I've just stamped "For the Record" on a piece of white paper, which I'm going to use as the title on that little tag. And while I'm here, I'm also looking at those ticket builder stamps on that Reagan stamp set. And I've decided that I want to create a little bit of a DIY embellishment. I want to find something that's going to pull out the blues that are in my photos. So I'm just having a look through my inks now to find some different blues. I don't have a lot of inks. I've got a lot of fantastic stamps, but my inks are just a bit of a sad mishmash. So I am looking for recommendations on some good ink sets to invest in. If you've got anything that you love to use, I would love for you to leave me a comment below and I will definitely go and check those out. So here I'm trying out a couple of different blues. I've got this Color Theory ink. These inks that I have from Studio Calico would be probably 5 or 6 years old, maybe even more. They're quite old, so they're not really too juicy anymore. And I'm just seeing how I like that one, but I just don't like the finish on them. So I've gone back into my stash and found a lighter blue. It's a Versacolor ink, and I'm giving that a go, and I end up liking that lighter blue and using that for the background of the ticket there. And then for the black, I'm just using my Stays On, which is really such a great go-to ink. So I've stamped that little ticket element there, and then I'm just going to cut that out and put it aside, ready to go on my layout a little bit later. Now I do have a little tip here for anybody that cuts out elements with the little notches in the side. This is a We Are Memory Keepers eyelet setter, and it's got the two little different sized circle punches. I use those to punch the notches out of that ticket, and it's just cuts a perfect little notch there. I found that if I try and cut it out by hand, I'm not great at fussy cutting, and it always looks a bit off to me. So to create this tag, because I am so fussy about things being perfect, I've marked out some spots and drawn some lines before I use my scissors to snip off the ends there. And then I'm marking out the middle point of that and using my chomper to put a hole in the top. Out comes my trusty typewriter. This thing is so good. It cost me $50 at a local secondhand store, and it types so well. I can type all the way to the bottom of my 3x4 cards, and it holds on. I absolutely love it. And I'd highly recommend, if you're looking at buying a typewriter, make sure you go somewhere that you can test it out before you buy it, because you really want to make sure that it types well before spending the money on it and bringing it home. Now I'm just sticking down that For the Record stamped piece that I had cut out earlier, and now that I have my journaling tag ready to go, I'm going to lay that down on the back of the photo and use that as a guide to figure out where I want to put my double-sided tape. Obviously, the double-sided tape is not just holding that photo down, but it's also creating a little pocket for that tag. So I want to make sure that it's the right size so that the tag fits and also doesn't get lost floating around behind that photo. So I'm going to stick that down. Now, I did have an idea when I was looking at creating this page of making some layered embellishments with the papers using these scalloped circle punches. So what you're seeing me do here is just punch out a whole bunch of different circles from some of the pattern papers that came in the Lindsey Kit, and then I'm playing around with layering them. I've gone into my ribbon stash and I've found a blue ribbon which I'm sticking into the top of that tag before popping it behind the photo. And while I was there, I also found this roll of white lace trim that I love, and I decided that I wanted to add that down the bottom of that feature photo. Doing it this way was certainly really tricky, and I wish I had thought ahead and put the trim down before I'd stuck the photo down, but I am a little bit stubborn and I was determined to do it, so I made it work. I used red line tape, some very narrow red line tape, which is what I tend to use in this sort of scenario. It's nice and strong. I know that fabric is going to stick really well to the back of the photo. So when I started layering those scallop circles down, I realized that they weren't quite looking the way that I wanted them to. So I've gone away and got a 1-inch circle punch and just punched out a few more pieces of paper. And you're seeing me now doing a lot of fussing around and playing with layering those up and seeing where they want to go. And I think it's at this point that I decided, or I realized, that it just wasn't going to work the way I wanted it to. I think perhaps it was a little bit too monochromatic, maybe too much of that red polka dot. I don't know, for whatever reason it wasn't working. So what I've decided to do is grab that blue ink pad again, and one of the basic stamp sets, little stamp sets that I've got there, has a tab stamp. So I've stamped that down twice, and then I've grabbed a couple of the sentiment stamps, which I'm going to add to the tags there. One of them says Here and There, and the other one says Together, which were a nice little sentiment to add to my layout. And then I'm just fussy cutting those out. before I decide where they are going to go on my layout. So doing that means that I've got that nice pop of blue which complements the photos in 3 places across the layout. And I am definitely more of a rule follower than a rule breaker when it comes to design concepts. So that rule of 3 is one that I stick to quite closely on most of my layouts. Now I'm looking at my title. I've gone through my extremely large stash of alpha stickers, and I've pulled out these red Ellie Studio puffy alphabet stickers. That red is a perfect match for the red that's on the polka dot background. And I also found these really old blue polka dot chipboard alphas. It's a lowercase alpha, which I've had for a really long time, and they were perfect. The blue and the polka dots was just the perfect addition for this layout. So my title is Family Day. Like I said, these photos were taken on an Oktoberfest family day at a venue that's quite close to where we live in the Swan Valley in Perth. Sticking those down, and then I'm going to finish off my embellishing, putting one of those tabs behind the bottom photo, and then I'm going to create a little layered cluster up the top left hand side, just using the offcut of that little piece of white trim so there's a little bit of consistency there across the layout, and another one of those blue tabs. Just playing around with that top cluster to see what I wanted to do. So as well as the light blue stamping, I've also grabbed one of the pale salmon pink punched pieces, and I'm going to repeat those elements in my little embellishment clusters. I've also grabbed some enamel hearts, which have come from a couple of different Felicity Jane kits, and I pick out some of the black polka dot hearts there and just add those to my embellishment clusters. Next, you're going to see me grabbing my sewing machine, and I'll be adding some stitching around the edges just to finish the layout off, and I do have some close-up photos coming. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out my video and visit my channel. If you liked this video, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up, and of course please subscribe if you are interested in seeing more of what I have to create. Thank you again, and have a great day.